Hey there. Welcome to saas.unbound, brought to you by saas Group. I'm your host, Anna Dana, and this is the show where we chat with inspiring founders and experts to get an inside scoop on how they made their business a success. And today we're talking about success of saas Group because today with me is Tobias Schlottke, co-founder and CTO. It's great to see you here.
Hey, Anna. Great to meet you here
Yeah.
in person in Hamburg.
Right. Yeah, the first one in person. That's fun. So obviously we'll talk about saas Group and what we do, and something that a lot of founders are really interested in, technical due diligence, something that you're responsible for, right?
I think I would actually phrase it differently. Like many founders are potentially afraid of
Okay.
that for no reason. I mean, we talk to many startups we acquire. We actually do acquire bootstrapped companies, right?
Hmm.
And the technical due diligence is always, I think, a bit weird for most founders, as they don't know what to expect.
Okay.
And today we're here to also elaborate a bit on that, and discuss like why we do it,
Sure.
and why a founder doesn't have to be afraid necessarily.
Okay. Not necessarily. All right. But first, because we just also came back from an annual retreat with saas Group, which was a lot of fun, we discussed a new vision there. So maybe you could elaborate on that a little bit because it's also very exciting and probably means a bit of a change for the founders that are coming to us later this year.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a big change. We just decided or put up the vision that we want to become the biggest SaaS conglomerate in the world. I mean,
Okay.
everyone needs a vision, right?
That's
And
ambitious.
well, there aren't so many as well, so I think it's actually doable, and we're on a good track. We now have we acquired 17 different companies, or as we call them, brands. Whenever we acquired them, and we're quite happy with the progress. We have a lot of amazing people on board that really do a great job, provide a lot of central support with all the central functions that we built in SaaS Group to support the companies we acquired. Um, and my personal vision is also to build like a huge knowledge hub, because we all wanna learn, and we all want to become better in what we do. And I think that is where we help. And what is the most exciting fact for me, or the most exciting goal for me, to really provide valuable input on all the different topics that as a SaaS founder you often struggle with, right? Like pricing, finance, like all the dirty stuff that you don't want to touch. We help you with that. And we recently even started to build an AI team to support with large language models, etc. It's a huge trend. We don't want to miss, and we see many SaaS companies actually adopting that. So yeah, we want to be valuable. We want to be helpful whenever required, and also before that, whenever we're in talks. So that's our goal, and that was always like that. We just have we just put a big vision in front, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think it's also important to maybe elaborate on your background, right? How you ended up with saas Group in the first place, because not your first rodeo, not your only one, even now. So yeah, what's your story?
So a SaaS Group is my main gig, to put that up front. But I'm a founder for more than 10 years now. And if you are a founder for more than 10 years, and you kind of maybe sold a company or two, as I did, like I sold one company to Bertelsmann, one company to Zalando, you kind of end up having lots of responsibilities and different responsibilities. And you also, um, I don't know, like doing what you do, and annoy your family with that. And that is how it is for me. We first, or in a different setup, I first founded the two companies that I sold, then also founded a big conference that does still exist, where we actually sit in the podcast studios called OMR in Hamburg, which now spans like 70,000 people per year, gets 70,000 people over to Hamburg. And that's quite exciting. But I have a tech background, so I still love code, and I still love building SaaS products. And that's why I actually joined Tim and Ulrich on the mission to become the world's biggest SaaS conglomerate with SaaS Group.
Okay.
Like first, I joined as a very very early investor, and then like quickly became co-founder and partner. And yes, I cover like mostly the technical side, but we're all quite technical. Um, Maybe I'm the most technical of us. And I love working with founders. I love working with like digital products, and product companies. And yeah, that's what I do every day.
All right. So what are founders afraid of when they when they get to you, when they get to technical due diligence? Like when does it start in the first place? Because at first, I guess you're not really discussing it.
No, so our normal process is that first, as a founder, you talk to our sourcing team or our M&A team, and then when we're quite sure that it will come to a deal, there's an LOI signed, so a letter of intent signed on both sides, and that is like basically a handshake agreement on we want to acquire you. The price is set at that point, and the overall terms are already defined. Like how long does the founder stay?
Hmm.
Is there like a longer earnout? Does he want to stay or she want to stay with SaaS Group or not, etc., etc. And at that point, it kind of makes sense to look deeper into the actual intellectual property that was created, and that is what I do with a team, partly also with external consultants. We got a few due diligences going on at this point, and yeah, you look at the product, you look at the roadmap, you talk to the team. It's a deep conversation, and it's actually whenever there's something found, it doesn't mean that this will lead to no deal.
Hmm.
It's just an honest conversation to have, and going forward, in many cases, also let's say a slight correction in what you do, and a slight adoption to what SaaS Group wants to do with the business, essentially.
Okay. So, just one question because it's been kind of like on social media and in the air for such a long time. NDA. A lot of founders, when they go into even the first discussions, especially in Europe, they're trying to get you to sign an NDA. Green flag, red flag? Do you do that?
Honestly, I don't care so much. I don't believe, like generally, that NDAs are very effective, because I mean you often hear rumors, right?
Hmm.
Like about every company, and that comes from somewhere. Um, I think it's valuable, at least in a later stage of an LOI or before an LOI, to have an NDA. It's just like doing your homework, right?
Hmm.
You just have to do it, and that's it.
Okay. And a lot of companies, as far as I know, they're not really communicating the deal to the team until the deal is done. Um, but even for the technical due diligence, you kind of have to talk to some that were involved in building the company. So how does that happen? How do you not say that you're selling the company, but still?
It's very company specific, right?
Okay.
And in most cases, the people we talk to throughout the process are actually involved and know that there's a sale going on and why it's happening, etc., etc. It's just that you try to keep the circle of people that knows about the deal as small as possible, because, like, yeah, at any stage the deal can fail, and then yeah, it's weird for the team to go
Right.
through all that process.
A lot of
Yeah.
confusion. Okay. So I guess you start technical due diligence with whatever is available publicly first. So
Yeah. So first, before the technical due diligence, we even look at the like whatever is provided and can be provided, like the tech stack, the cloud that is being used, etc., etc. Partly the cloud cost, etc., to just like get a better feeling for what is there and how good the fit is.
mhm.
It never happened that we ditched a company because the tech stack was not for us, to be honest. It also rarely happens that, due to the findings of a technical due diligence, the whole process is canceled.
Mm-hmm.
That rarely happens. So it's more about finding valuable information and valuable things, having an outside perspective on your business, and on your technical stack as well, um, to kind of like pave the road forward, right? That's what it is for.
Okay, rarely happens, but still happens, right?
So yeah,
What could
so
take it?
it like for me, it doesn't happen that often. Like I give you one example, to also calm down founders that are maybe thinking about selling. Um, One of our best companies, one of our best acquisitions, was really, really worst case scenario if you look at the tech stack. So it was really like bad source code, not well maintained, lots of technical debt. We had credentials and code. We had open database ports so that the database could essentially leak to the outside if a hacker would attack it. It was like really, really open and really like not well defined.
Okay.
There was no roadmap. There was nothing. Still, we did the deal back then. We fixed it together with the founders, like most of the stuff, and also outlined a new roadmap to kind of fight the whole technical debt that was there. And well, the deal was also good for us back then, also partly because of that. But yeah, it ended up being one of our best acquisitions ever. So yeah, I can calm down the founders that are afraid of tech due diligences.
Okay, so nothing can throw saas group off.
Well, there are many things that can throw us off, but
All right. So what are the red flags that
it's
are
it's like,
no?
well, you have to have an honest conversation about how the status is, and if you find that you're not aligned on that, like
Mhm.
if you talk about it, if you have your findings, you talk about it, and you don't come to a joint roadmap going forward, then obviously that would be a red flag and we would cancel the deal. But that didn't happen back then.
Okay. What is the biggest green flag for you?
The biggest green flag?
Yeah.
That's a good question. So I would say you have a well-defined roadmap, a pitch deck, you have an architecture diagram, you did maybe a security audit a year ago, you did a cloud cost audit, and the team is well performing, so the velocity is really like good, and the team is motivated. That's, by the way, the best thing. Like if a team is motivated and really does gets work done, then that's, I would say, big check
Okay.
mark. Yeah.
All right. So what do you prepare for the first ever interaction with you? Like when you come in the picture, what do you expect founders to have with them? Like
Nothing.
okay.
It's fine if you come
Let's cut it.
if you come with empty
I think
hands.
we're done.
No, we typically start. We can cut it, but we typically start with a kickoff meeting where we just ask for all the material that we need. We send you like a question list. You can go through it with your team alone. You can prepare everything, and it's more like a project kickoff, right? And then you end up with a big list of questions and answers, and then in that list, like we pinpoint the topics where we want to have like follow-up conversations. Then we do interviews with the teams. We look at the source code, obviously. So I would say the better prepared you are for a source code audit, the better it is. So make sure you don't have credentials and code. You don't have like big smells in terms of like wrongly formatted stuff, no documentation, etc. Like just do good work. That's the best best advice I can give you.
Okay, that will be we should put it into our strategy. All right. So if a founder knows there is something, I don't know, anything that would do, I don't know, not so good during the technical due diligence, what to do about it? Do you hide it? It's going to come up at some point, right? So how could it affect the deal? How could it affect the relationship with the acquiring company?
So I think, I mean, it's obviously always the question how bad it is. And I think the founder knows herself or himself best. So I would mention it as early as possible. So whatever you can like put up in terms of topics you think you should be hiding, like just do it, because it will come up anyway. Like it will come to the surface, and if it comes to the surface without mentioning it for beforehand, it doesn't make sense, right? So put it up as early as possible, and then you're good to go.
Okay. I've heard a word that may not be familiar to somebody. It wasn't familiar to me until yesterday. So, smells and anti-patterns. What's that?
Well, there are obviously like the things you could do wrong and that we like spot early,
Okay.
and where we want to see as little as possible. So, for example, the biggest smell from my perspective is if you see that there's a misalignment between the tech team. Sorry, the biggest the biggest smell from my perspective is if you have a lack of business understanding in the tech team, and a non-alignment with the business team. That's like what you find in many companies,
Mhm.
unfortunately, like especially if the company grows. Um, but it's really bad to have. So um, the better you are aligned, the better it is. But it's also something partly you can't really influence a lot. Like it really depends on the CTO, it depends on the team, and yeah, be well aligned. The good thing is that with many smaller SaaS companies, this doesn't happen so often, right? Because the founder is maybe partly also coding, is maybe partly technical, and focuses on having a small and effective team. Um, the flip side of that, or the downside of that, is often that the founder is potentially micromanaging. Like if the company grows to like 10 or 15 FTE,
That happens often.
you often have the situation that the team is kind of annoyed by the founder, and that we essentially free the company from the founder a bit if the founder jumps off
Oh,
afterwards,
that's bad.
which can be well, no, it can be quite positive effect
No,
for
I
the
mean
team.
for the founder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but it can be positive. Then often, yeah, I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand with that. You see a lack of delegation
Mhm.
from the CTO. So we often see very hands-on CTOs that lack the ability to delegate effectively. That's one of the topics that like we heavily see, but it can be cured, right? It can be handled. Then many companies, especially technical companies, love to build instead of to buy. Like sometimes it's better to just buy a freaking SaaS product instead of like
Right.
just doing it yourself. Many do that wrong. Then there's often a lack of understanding what the best tool for the job is. So often, like especially like in databases, founders sometimes over engineer and sometimes pick the wrong tool. I would say like just go with Postgres, then you're fine. So as simple as that. But there's also often like a lack of understanding of the overall architecture that it's the goal architecture that's often being done wrong. Yeah.
Right. Okay. But I want to come back to lack of delegation because we often buy very small companies
Mhm.
and there is the CTO. Sometimes that's pretty much it, maybe like two more people. So why would it be such a problem, especially if they like stay within the company?
Well, if they're just three people, it's often not so much of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, it's not great if all the knowledge about the company is in the head of the founder, right? Like often you see that also in like growing teams, that you have this knowledge island still,
Mm-hmm.
where everything depends on the founder. And whenever the founder is gone, like the team is kind of headless, right?
Yeah.
So doesn't know what to do, and isn't very effective. So we really believe in autonomy, and that like each team member should really be enabled and empowered to do the job properly. And yeah, that's suboptimal if there's only one effectively working, right, and the others just get like part of whatever falls down, right?
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for elaborating. Um, how long do technical due diligence take? And what's is there a life after that? What happens later?
Well, typically a technical due diligence takes like 2 to 3 weeks, like depending on how much time you put into it and how
Okay.
much you compress it. But I mean, we have to look at the source code and all the different material that you provide. So typically, yeah, 2 weeks. And the life after, well, normally we have a conversation, like also with the founders about what we found, and how we want to take that from there, like what we think is critical. So we're very honest about what we find and what we figure out, and then define a roadmap. Like essentially, whenever we buy a company, we have like an Asana board prepared where we put in everything we find, also in commercial due diligence, etc. And then we just take it from there. Like whenever we went through the acquisition, and if there's no acquisition happening, then I think the founder has like some homework he could do, if he like maybe at a certain point wants to sell to us,
Mm-hmm.
or to
Okay.
someone else, like wherever the deal breaks, right? So you actually get meaningful information out of it, and helpful information out of it as a founder as well.
All right. You treat it as audit.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like an audit, right?
All right. But let's talk about that. Like when a deal falls through, what do you do? Like as a founder, do you sign another NDA? Do you I don't know. What do you do with
You
like
continue your business,
you
right? I mean, depending on
you gave all the
how
information away?
yeah, well, you just continue your business. It's just like you separate again, right?
Yeah. So, if you could give one advice to founders, how to prepare for technical due diligence, what's
So I think
how to
there's
go there?
yeah, I think there are like many advices I could give, in terms of what to prepare, like do security audits regularly, cloud cost audits, be well prepared. But I think that the one thing that is really annoying if you do it afterwards, is essentially having clarity on your intellectual property. Like,
Mhm.
does the software really belong to the company? That's one thing that founders like typically dislike, like contracts, right? And
Okay.
contractual work. Whenever you hire a freelancer somewhere, make sure you have proper contracts. The IP belongs to you. That's the most important thing to have, because that is what would shy away like almost every buyer. Let's assume you have a freelancer, I don't know, in a country that's not very close and not so easy. Um, then it's very important that you have IP assignment, and that you're sure that the source code really belongs to you.
What would happen if you didn't?
Well, you could end up in legal trouble, obviously, because then let's say that freelancer realizes, you're selling, then maybe, yeah, is no longer with the company, and it will come back to you, right? And could cause you trouble. Um, could have also stolen the source code. So there are like many things that could happen, right?
Okay.
And you just make sure that whatever you have belongs to you, and you have that written down, and agreed with every freelancer, every full-time employee that you have. Like
Okay.
whatever is produced at work belongs to you. Yeah.
Does it happen often, or founders forget about that? I mean, you're a
Yeah,
team.
it
You're a
happens
family.
regularly. It happens regularly, like that. Whenever a deal is being closed or prepared, that the founder needs some time to just talk to all the freelancers that he ever worked with or she ever worked with, and to get those additional contracts ready,
Okay.
before the sale.
Before the sale. Okay. So what is the usual mistake that everyone does? What what they don't prepare before the sale, and then you're like, oh, again.
Well, that's that. That's that. Like that's really that like the contracts and the contractual work that everyone forgets. Then yeah, besides that, like everything can be fixed easily, but that is really really hard. Also, I think like open source licenses. So whenever you use open source, just make sure that you're actually able to use it commercially. That's also one thing that founders often do wrong, like especially technical people. You just use what is there, like free code, right?
Yeah.
Sounds good, and then you end up having a mess and having to pay someone for what you use, maybe even for the years that you already used it. So that's not an ideal scenario. So we also obviously realize that in the Tech DD, but yeah, it's better if you know about it, right? If you know about it upfront.
Sure. So what you're looking for really in technical due diligence or any other part of it is transparency.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So now
It's
we close.
yeah, I mean, it's an honest conversation,
Right.
and that's it, and it's helpful for both sides. So don't be afraid of it.
All right. And just I wanted to ask one question because you kept talking about that having a roadmap, right? And somehow this could be a problem for an acquirer, but then you could. Why would you need a roadmap from a founder that's maybe leaving if you could do anything with it now?
It tells you a lot about the maturity of the company. Like if there's, let's say, a 3-year vision, like this is what we want to achieve with the company in 3 years. The roadmap is like more short term. So this is what we want to do this year. It shows that you are aligned, that you know what to work on, and that there's a path going forward, and that it like not the tech team is like, let's say, absolutely misaligned with business. So that's what we get out of that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's I let's do maybe a quick wrap up. What's what to prepare? What's your first step to go into due diligence? What could throw potentially an acquirer, not an acquirer. Let's talk saas group. What could throw saas group off the deal? What would be a red flag, but we could look away? And what is the best case scenario?
So ideally, you prepared a pitch deck, a roadmap, a diagram about your architecture. You maybe did a security audit. You know your infrastructure. You know why you use each of the components. And you maybe ideally did security audit and cloud cost audit. That would be brilliant, but like almost no company we see has that at all. Like if you have half of it, it's already great.
Okay. All right. So just a couple more. What is your hack in technical due diligence? Like what is something that helps you identify the like if it's a no-go from the start or if it could end up in an acquisition from your side?
My hack, or the simplest thing to do if the company is using GitHub, is often to look at statistics,
Okay.
like who's contributing what. Like you then see like the team and who's contributing what and how much. And in many companies, we see that the founder was actually the one contributing the most, and that's like a almost yellow flag.
Okay.
Because you in many cases also the founder walks apart, right? So yeah, that's the easiest thing to do, to just check that, and to just like create awareness of how involved the founder is in the day-to-day work of yeah, the product.
Okay. So the best case scenario?
The best case scenario that the founder is like maybe did some work at the beginning and then you
So they
see
move
that others
away.
took over, and that there's a very mature team working together, collaborating on like the creation of the product. That's the best case scenario there.
Okay. So far, for SaaS Group, for you at SaaS Group, what has been the biggest win? Let's talk acquisition wise, and the biggest failure.
Wow, not so prepared for that.
No one is.
I mean, the biggest failure, you often don't talk about that, right? It's the question if we want to.
Transparency we're looking for.
Yeah. So I already spoke about that one case, one of our brands that actually ended up being a very good deal, and back then, it's a bit of a funny anecdote. We used a tool to analyze the source code that itself had issues with security, and we just realized that afterwards that there was actually a breach, and that the source code then could have been leaked, or could have leaked to a hacker. And then it was exciting, but immediately was in touch with the FBI, that then came to us and asked us if they can help.
Okay.
And it all ended up good. Like, we immediately had to fix all the security issues together with the founder and everything. And obviously never did that again. But that shows how important it is to stay clean, security wise, and make sure that you're not using the wrong tools, and that you obviously never have your credentials written in code. That means that your passwords are versioned in a version control system, and everyone who has access to that can figure out what your standard password is, and that was back then the case, and it's biggest success and biggest failure in one thing, right?
One thing. All right, that's perfect. Well, we're going to do probably another video a bit deeper into tech due diligence.
Cool.
But yeah, thank you for saying everything that you've already said. I think it's already a bit clearer, like how SaaS Group is very flexible. Nothing is a red flag, right? So
well, there are many red flags. I don't want to say that. There are many red flags, but it barely happens. Like, most companies we see have okay structured documentation, have lots of technical debt, etc. But honestly, yeah, that happens everywhere. And we are relaxed about that and defining a way forward with the founders. And it's not that we, in most cases, both sides want the deal, right? In such situations, and then you figure out a way, and that's it.
Okay. All right. So nothing to be afraid of.
No, nothing to be afraid of.
Okay. All right. Well, then if a founder wants to find you and talk, I don't know, tech due diligence, sell into SaaS Group, that's probably dark, right? But if they want to talk to you, how to find you?
So just ping me on LinkedIn. That's very simple. I also run a community for CTOs called Alphalist. You can just join and profit from the knowledge of others. And yeah, happy to engage.
All right. Well, thank you, Toby. It's been great talking with you. And back to work.
Back to work. Thanks a lot, Anna.
Thank you.